The stars looked different from the bridge of the Harmony's edge. Captain Zethkar pressed his four-fingered hand against the cool metal wall and stared at the yellow star ahead. His ship had been traveling for 3 cycles, searching for new worlds that his people could use. The Galactic Survey needed fresh planets. Too many worlds were getting crowded. "Captain," called Science Officer Vextal from her station. Her blue skin glowed softly in the dim light of the bridge. "We have found something." Zethkar turned away from the viewing window. His tall, thin body moved with the grace that all Valenti possessed. "Show me what you have discovered." The main screen lit up with images of a blue and green world. White. Clouds swirled around the planet like cotton in the wind. Zethkar had seen many worlds, but this one looked special. It looked alive. "The third planet from the star," Vextal said. "Our scans show water, land, and thick atmosphere. The conditions look perfect for life." "Any signs of intelligence?" Zethkar asked. "Yes, Captain. We detect cities and what appears to be basic technology. They have achieved simple spaceflight, but nothing advanced. Very primitive." Zethkar nodded. This was exactly what they were looking for. A world with life, but not advanced enough to fight back when the Galactic Survey claimed it. His superiors would be pleased. On the surface of Earth, far below the alien ship, Dr. Lisa Parker sat at her desk in the International Space Monitoring Station. The building sat high in the Colorado mountains, where the thin air made breathing hard for most people. Lisa did not mind. She had grown up in these mountains. Though computer screens around her showed data from deep space sensors. For 15 years, she had watched the stars and waited for something unusual. Today felt different. A small blip on her screen caught her attention. "Computer, analyze signal pattern 77 alpha," she said. The computer worked for several seconds. "Pattern shows artificial origin. Object measures approximately 2 kilometers in length. Composition unknown. Current position is holding steady at 47,000 kilometers above Earth's surface." Lisa's heart began to beat faster. She had dreamed of this moment her whole life. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she had memorized, but never used. General Jake Morrison, Earth Defense Command. "General, this is Dr. Lisa Parker at the monitoring station. We have a contact." The line went quiet for a moment. "Are you certain, Doctor?" "Yes, sir. Large artificial object holding position above Earth. This is not one of ours. I'll be there in 2 hours. Don't contact anyone else." Lisa hung up the phone and stared at her screens. Somewhere up there, beings from another world were looking down at Earth. She wondered what they thought of her planet. In New York City, construction worker Pete Collins stood on the 42nd floor of a new skyscraper. The wind blew hard at this height, making the building sway slightly. Pete did not mind. He had been building tall structures for 20 years. Heights did not scare him. "Pete, hand me that wrench," called his partner, Carlos Martinez. Pete walked across a steel beam that was only 8 inches wide. Below him, the street looked tiny. Cars moved like ants. One wrong step would mean death, but Pete moved with the confidence of someone who did this every day. "You see that weird cloud up there?" Carlos pointed at the sky. Pete looked up and squinted. "Looks normal to me. Just another cloud." Neither man knew that alien eyes were watching them. Far above, the crew of the Harmony's Edge observed these. Humans walking on thin metal beams hundreds of feet above the ground. The aliens found this behavior confusing. Why do they put themselves in such danger? Asked Navigator Clickstar. Perhaps it is some form of punishment, Vextal replied. Their primitive minds may not understand the risk. Captain Zethkar watched the humans work. Continue scanning. I want to know everything about this species before we make contact. At the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Amy Chen guided her research submarine through the dark water. The pressure at this depth would crush a human body in seconds, but her submarine was built to handle it. She loved exploring the deep ocean. Few humans had ever been this far down. Her lights revealed strange creatures that lived in the eternal darkness. Fish with glowing bodies swam past her window. Giant squid moved through the water like ghosts. Surface control. This is Deep Explorer. I'm at maximum depth. Pressure readings are normal. The voice from above crackled through her radio. Copy that, Amy. How are you feeling down there? Like I'm flying through space, she replied. The life forms here are incredible. Amy did not know that alien sensors were trying to understand how she could survive at such crushing depths. The technology that protected her seemed impossible to the watchers above. Back on the Harmony's edge, the science team gathered around their captain. They had been studying Earth for several hours and the data confused them. Captain, we have a problem, said Medical Officer Thexrin. His green face showed concern. The biological readings from this planet make no sense. Explain. The life forms are exposed to levels of radiation that should kill them. The atmosphere contains gases that are toxic to most known species, yet they appear to be thriving. Zethkar frowned. Check your equipment. Perhaps there is an error. I have checked 3 times, sir. The readings are correct. This planet bombards its inhabitants with deadly energy from their star. The magnetic field is weak. Cosmic radiation reaches the surface constantly. Yet they survive? Not only survive, Captain. They appear to be flourishing. The cities are growing. The population is in the billions. Zethkar stared at the image of Earth on his screen. Something was wrong here. No species should be able to live on a world like this. In a small town in Alaska, Joe Frost prepared for his daily hunt. The temperature outside was 40 degrees below zero. The wind cut through the air like knives made of ice. Joe put on his thick coat and boots. This was normal weather for him. He had grown up in this cold. His grandfather had taught him to hunt in temperatures that would kill most living things. Joe did not think about the cold. It was just part of life. Take care out there, his wife called from the warm house. Always do, Joe replied. He stepped outside into air so cold it hurt to breathe. Above him, alien instruments recorded the impossible. A human being was walking around in conditions that would freeze most galactic species solid in minutes. Yet this creature seemed comfortable. This cannot be correct, muttered Science Officer Vextal. General Jake Morrison arrived at the monitoring station as the sun was setting. He was a large man with gray hair and serious eyes. He had spent 30 years preparing for this day, though he had hoped it would never come. Show me what we're dealing with, Doctor, he said to Lisa. Lisa pointed at her screens. It appeared 6 hours ago. It's holding position and scanning us. I've detected at least 15 different sensor sweeps. Any attempts at communication? None. They seem content to just watch. Morrison studied the data. How long before they make contact? Unknown. But General, there's something else. The scans they're using are incredibly advanced. They're learning everything about us. Morrison nodded grimly. Then we better be ready for whatever comes next. High above Earth, Captain Zethkar made his decision. Prepare a probe for launch. I want detailed scans of the surface. Something about this world is not right. Yes, Captain. Launching probe in 10 minutes. The probe shot away from the Harmony's edge like a silver arrow. It would reach Earth's atmosphere in less than an hour. Then the real discoveries would begin. None of the humans below knew that their world was about to be classified as something that would terrify the galaxy. They went about their normal lives, not knowing that. Normal for them was impossible for everyone else. The probe entered Earth's atmosphere like a falling star. Its advanced systems immediately began recording everything. The air itself seemed dangerous to the alien technology. Oxygen levels that would cause fires on most worlds. Nitrogen that would poison many species. Yet somehow, life thrived here. Science Officer Vextal watched the data stream in. Her 4 eyes blinked in disbelief as each new reading appeared on her screen. Captain, the atmospheric composition is lethal to 60% of known galactic species. Yet the dominant life forms breathe it naturally? Captain Zethkar asked. Yes, sir. They appear to require it. Without this toxic mixture, they would die. The probe descended toward a large city. Its cameras focused on the creatures moving through the streets below. They walked upright on 2 legs like many intelligent species. But something was different about them. In downtown Chicago, Sam Rodriguez walked out of a bar with his friends. The cool night air felt good after the heat inside. Sam was a big man with thick arms and a broad chest. He had served 3 tours as a Marine before coming home to work construction. Hey, Sam, you gonna finish that challenge or what? His friend, Tony, called out. Sam grinned and pulled a small red pepper from his pocket. The ghost pepper was one of the hottest foods on Earth. Most people could not even touch it without pain. Sam bit into it like it was an apple. Fire exploded in his mouth. His face turned red and sweat appeared on his forehead, but he kept chewing and swallowed the entire pepper. His friends cheered and bought him another beer. Above, alien sensors recorded the event. The probe's medical scanners analyzed the chemical compound Sam had just eaten. The results made the science officer's skin turn pale blue. Captain, that creature just consumed a substance that registers as a Class 4 biological weapon. Impossible. Check your readings. I have checked twice, sir. The compound would cause severe internal damage to most life forms. It should have killed him. Captain Zethkar watched Sam laugh with his friends and order another drink. Perhaps their biology is more robust than we assumed. Sir, there's more. The liquid he is consuming contains ethanol. That's a poison we use for cleaning equipment. At the University of Chicago, Katie Brooks sat in the library surrounded by textbooks. She had been studying for 14 hours straight, preparing for her medical school exams. Her eyes burned from reading, but she could not stop now. She opened another can of energy drink and took a long sip. The caffeine hit her system like lightning, making her heart beat faster. This was her 6th can today. She needed the energy to keep going. Katie did not know that alien eyes were watching her. The probe's sensors detected the caffeine in her blood. To the aliens, she had just poisoned herself with a stimulant that would kill most species. Another toxin, Vextal reported. The female has consumed enough stimulants to stop the hearts of 3 Valenti. Yet she appears unaffected. Her heart rate is elevated but stable. Her brain activity is actually increasing. Captain, these creatures use poisons as fuel. In Yellowstone National Park, Ranger Bill Turner walked along the boardwalk that crossed the hot springs. Steam rose from the bubbling water like smoke from a fire. The air smelled of sulfur and other chemicals. The temperature here reached levels that would cook most living things. Bill breathed the toxic air without concern. He had worked in Yellowstone for 12 years. The geothermal features were dangerous, but beautiful. He often brought visitors, here to see the natural wonders. The water temperature is 190 degrees, he told a group of tourists. Don't fall in, or you'll be cooked in seconds. The tourists laughed nervously and took pictures. They stood just feet away from water hot enough to kill them instantly. Yet they treated it like entertainment. The alien probe recorded everything. Its thermal sensors showed readings that should not be possible. These creatures were living and working in an environment that most galactic species would classify as a weapon testing ground. They walked beside boiling water as if it were harmless, Navigator Clickstar observed. The atmospheric readings show toxic gases that would require protective equipment on any civilized world, added Medical Officer Thexrin. Yet they breathe it freely. In Australia, wildlife photographer Rachel Stone crouched in the tall grass, waiting for the perfect shot. 20 feet away, a saltwater crocodile sunned itself on the riverbank. The massive reptile was 18 feet long and weighed over a ton. Its jaws could crush a car. Rachel adjusted her camera lens and took several photos. The crocodile opened one yellow eye and looked at her. She did not move. After a moment, the giant predator closed its eye and continued resting. Beautiful, Rachel whispered to herself. The alien probe classified the crocodile as a Class 5 predator. On most worlds, such a creature would require military intervention to approach safely. Yet this human sat within striking distance, completely calm. The creature she observes could kill her in seconds, Vextal noted. Yet she shows no fear, Captain Zethkar replied. Are they unaware of the danger? Unknown, sir. But this pattern is repeating across the planet. They live alongside predators that should terrify them. Deep in the Pacific Ocean, Captain Ray Murphy guided his submarine through the crushing darkness. The pressure at this depth was enormous, over 800 times greater than at the surface. The water pressed against his vessel with the force of mountains. Ray had been exploring the deep ocean for 20 years. He loved the silence and the strange creatures that lived in the abyss. Few humans had ever been this deep. It was like visiting another planet. Surface control, this is Deep Explorer. Descending through 12,000 feet. All systems normal. The Auber. Voice from above was faint through the miles of water. Copy that, Ray. How's the view down there? Dark as always. But the life forms are incredible. I'm seeing species we've never cataloged. Above, alien sensors struggled to understand how Ray's primitive technology could function at such depths. The pressure readings showed levels that would crush most galactic vessels. Their materials science must be more advanced than we thought, suggested Engineer Fluxcore. No, Vextal replied, studying the data. The technology is crude, but it works in conditions that would destroy our finest equipment. In a hospital in Denver, Dr. Patricia Wells prepared for surgery. The patient on the table had been in a car accident. His internal injuries were severe. Without immediate surgery, he would die. Patricia picked up her scalpel and made the first cut. Blood appeared on the patient's skin. She worked quickly, opening his body to repair the damage inside. The alien probe watched in horror. To their eyes, Dr. Wells was deliberately injuring an already wounded creature. They had never seen anything so barbaric. She is cutting into the injured being, Thexrin gasped. It appears to be some form of torture, Clickstar added. No, wait, Captain Zethkar said, studying the readings more carefully. Look at the vital signs. The injured one's condition is improving. The aliens watched as Patricia repaired damaged organs with her hands. She stitched torn tissue back together. Slowly, the patient's vital signs grew stronger. "They use violence to heal," Vextal whispered. "They cut their own bodies open to fix problems inside." "This is beyond our understanding," the captain admitted. In Las Vegas, mixed martial arts fighter Tony Garcia stepped into the cage. His opponent was a man named Jake Sullivan, equally strong and equally trained to fight. Thousands of people watched from the seats around them. The bell rang and both men charged at each other. Tony threw a punch that would have broken most bones. Jake blocked it and responded with a kick that sent Tony stumbling backward. The crowd cheered as the two humans beat each other with their bare hands. Blood appeared on both faces. Neither man gave up. They seemed to enjoy the violence. The alien probe recorded the entire fight. To the watchers above, this looked like ritualized warfare. Two members of the same species trying to kill each other while others watched for entertainment. "They fight their own kind for pleasure," Clickstar observed. "The crowd seems to enjoy watching the violence," Vexatal added. "What kind of species finds combat entertaining?" Captain Zethkar wondered. At a playground in suburban Ohio, teacher Mary Campbell watched 30 children play during recess. They ran and jumped and climbed on metal structures. Some fell down and scraped their knees. They cried for a moment, then got up and continued playing. One boy named Jimmy fell from the monkey bars and landed hard on the ground. Mary rushed over to check on him. He had a small cut on his arm, but otherwise seemed fine. "I'm okay, Miss Campbell," Jimmy said, jumping back to his feet. "Are you sure? That was quite a fall." "Yeah, I'm tough," Jimmy replied, and ran back to play. The alien medical sensors had recorded the impact. The force should have caused serious injury to a young creature. Yet this small human seemed unaffected. Their young ones survive impacts that would kill adult members of most species, Thexerin reported. "How is this possible?" the captain asked. "Unknown. Sir, their bone structure appears to be incredibly dense. Their muscle tissue is remarkably resilient." As the probe continued its survey, the aliens began to realize something terrifying. This was not a peaceful garden world inhabited by primitive beings. This was something far more dangerous. "Captain," Vextal said quietly, "I believe we have made an error in our classification of this planet." "What do you mean?" "These creatures do not simply live on this world. They have adapted to thrive." The alien probe expanded its survey across Earth's most extreme environments. Each new region brought fresh horror to the crew of the Harmony's Edge. What they discovered challenged everything they knew about biology and survival. In the frozen wilderness of northern Alaska, Inuit hunter Joe Frost tracked a polar bear across the ice. The temperature was 50 degrees below zero. The wind cut through the air with the sharpness of broken glass. Most galactic species would freeze solid in minutes under these conditions. Joe wore thick furs and moved with the quiet confidence of someone born to this land. His grandfather had taught him to hunt in weather that would kill most living things. The cold was not his enemy. It was just part of life. He found the bear's tracks in the snow and followed them carefully. Polar bears were dangerous predators, but Joe's people had hunted them for thousands of years. He carried a rifle, but he hoped not to use it. The bear was beautiful and deserved respect. Above, the alien probe's thermal sensors registered the impossible. This human was functioning normally in temperatures that would flash freeze most known biology. His body heat remained stable despite the deadly cold around him. "The thermal readings show lethal conditions," reported Science Officer Vextal. Yet, the human appears comfortable. Check the calibration on our sensors, Captain Zethkar ordered. I have checked 3 times, sir. The readings are accurate. That human is surviving in conditions similar to our deep space emergency protocols. The probe shifted its attention to the opposite extreme. In the Australian outback, wildlife photographer Rachel Stone tracked venomous snakes through the red desert sand. The temperature here reached 120 degrees in the shade. The sun beat down like a hammer made of fire. Rachel wore light clothing and a wide hat. She had been walking for hours under the burning sun, following the tracks of a king brown snake. The snake was one of the deadliest creatures on Earth, but Rachel needed to photograph it for her research. She found the snake coiled under a rock, hiding from the heat. Rachel approached slowly and carefully. The snake watched her with cold eyes, but did not strike. She took several photos and backed away. Perfect, she whispered, checking her camera. The alien sensors recorded her core body temperature, which remained stable despite the killing heat. The snake she had photographed registered as a Class 4 toxic predator. Its venom would kill most galactic species in minutes. She approached a venomous predator in environmental conditions that should have killed her before she reached it. Navigator Clickstar observed, and she appears to have done this voluntarily, added Medical Officer Thexerin. In the depths of the Pacific Ocean, marine researcher Captain Ray Murphy guided his submarine through underwater mountains that reached up from the ocean floor. The pressure here was crushing. The darkness was complete, except for his lights. Ray had discovered a new species of deep-sea creature that lived near volcanic vents on the ocean floor. The water temperature here reached levels that would boil most life forms. Yet strange creatures thrived in this impossible environment. Surface control, this is Deep Explorer. I'm at 14,000 feet. I found something incredible down here. Through his thick window, Ray watched tube worms the size of trees swaying in the superheated water. Fish with glowing bodies swam through clouds of toxic chemicals that poured from the volcanic vents. The life forms here are adapted to conditions. That should be impossible, he reported. Ray did not know that alien eyes were watching him with growing terror. His primitive submarine was functioning at depths that would crush the finest galactic vessels. He was exploring an environment more hostile than most planetary weapon testing sites. Their technology should not work under those conditions, Engineer Fluxcore stated. Yet it does, Captain Zethkar replied grimly. These creatures have mastered environments that we consider uninhabitable. The probe detected something new and focused its sensors on a construction site in Dubai. Workers were building the tallest structure on Earth. They worked in temperatures that reached 130 degrees, carrying heavy materials, up scaffolding that reached toward the clouds. Construction worker Ahmed Hassan climbed steel beams 800 feet above the ground. The wind at this height was strong enough to knock a person off balance. One wrong step meant certain death. Yet Ahmed moved with the casual confidence of someone who did this every day. "Hand me that beam," he called to his partner. The two men lifted a piece of steel that weighed several hundred pounds. They positioned it carefully, working together with the precision of a machine. Below them, the city looked like a toy model. The alien medical scanners detected stress levels that should have caused immediate system failure in most species. Yet these humans continued working as if the danger meant nothing to them. They build structures that reach into the upper atmosphere, Vextal reported, using only primitive materials and their own physical strength. "And they do this willingly?" the captain asked. "Yes, sir. They appear to seek out dangerous occupations. In the mountains of Nepal, climbing guide Tenzing Norbu led a team of climbers up Mount Everest. The altitude here was so high that the air contained barely enough oxygen to breathe. The temperature was 40 degrees below zero. The wind could knock a person off the mountain. Tenzing had climbed this mountain 30 times. He knew every dangerous section, every place where climbers had died. Yet he came back again and again, leading others to the summit. "Stay close to the rope," he told his clients. "The weather is getting worse." Snow whipped around them like angry spirits. Visibility dropped to just a few feet. Any sane species would have turned back. But humans kept climbing. The alien probe recorded atmospheric conditions that would kill most galactic life forms in seconds. The oxygen levels were so low that most species would lose consciousness immediately. Yet humans climbed higher. They deliberately ascend to altitudes that would cause immediate death to most known biology, Clickstar observed. "For what purpose?" the captain wondered. "Unknown, sir. They appear to do it for personal satisfaction. In the Amazon rainforest, anthropologist Dr. Carl Bennett studied indigenous tribes that lived deep in the jungle. The rainforest was full of predators and toxic plants, diseases that had no cure, insects that carried deadly parasites. Carl had been living in the jungle for 6 months, studying how humans had adapted to one of Earth's most dangerous environments. He ate food that would poison most species. He drank water that contained organisms lethal to most galactic biology. "The Yanomami people have lived here for thousands of years," he wrote in his journal. "They know every plant, every animal, every danger. They have turned this deadly environment into their home." The tribal children played in streams full of parasites. They climbed trees that contained venomous spiders. They lived in harmony with an environment that the aliens classified as a biological weapon zone, an entire ecosystem designed to kill its inhabitants, Thexerin reported. Yet humans have not only survived there, they have thrived for millennia. The probe detected new activity in the frozen Antarctic. Research scientist Dr. Helen White worked at a station built on ice that was thousands of feet thick. The temperature outside was 70 degrees below zero. The wind reached speeds that would destroy most structures. Helen studied ice cores that told the story of Earth's climate over millions of years. She worked in conditions that would kill most life forms. Yet she treated it as a normal research assignment. "The ice here is 2 million years old," she explained to her colleague over the radio. "It contains information about Earth's entire climate history." She drilled through ice with primitive equipment, working in an environment more hostile than most planets the aliens had ever surveyed. Yet she seemed completely comfortable. "They establish permanent settlements in conditions equivalent to our most extreme survival training," reported FluxCore. "And they use these settlements for scientific research," added Vextal. "They seek knowledge in environments that should prevent all biological activity." In the deserts of Death Valley, survival expert Maria Santos taught military personnel how to survive in extreme heat. The ground temperature reached 160 degrees. The air was so dry it could kill through dehydration in hours. Maria had spent her childhood in this desert. Her family had lived here for generations, learning to find water where none seemed to exist and to survive in heat that would cook most species. "The key is to conserve every drop of moisture," she told her students. "Your body is already adapted to this environment. You just need to learn to use it properly." The soldiers practiced techniques that allowed them to survive for days without water. They learned to find shelter from the killing sun and to move when the temperature was lowest. The alien sensors recorded human physiology that defied their understanding. These creatures possessed internal cooling systems that allowed them to function in temperatures that would cause immediate system failure in most galactic species. Their biology includes built-in survival mechanisms for extreme environments, Thexrin noted, as if they evolved specifically to survive in impossible conditions. Captain Zethkar replied. In the volcanic regions of Iceland, geologist Dr. Robert Kim studied active lava flows. The alien probe's focus shifted to human medicine and combat sports. What it discovered there would haunt the crew of the Harmony's Edge for cycles to come. The methods humans used to heal themselves and their recreation activities defied all understanding of civilized behavior. In a hospital in Boston, surgeon Dr. Patricia Wells prepared for a complex heart operation. The patient on the table was a 50-year-old construction worker who had suffered a massive heart attack. Without immediate surgery, he would die within hours. Patricia scrubbed her hands with chemicals that would burn most alien skin. She put on protective clothing and entered the operating room. The patient lay unconscious on the metal table, his chest exposed. "Scalpel," Patricia said to her assistant. She took the sharp blade and cut through the patient's skin. Blood welled up from the wound. Patricia continued cutting through muscle and tissue until she reached the rib cage. Then she took a saw and began cutting through bone. The alien medical scanners went silent with shock. To their sensors, Dr. Wells was systematically destroying a living being. She was cutting through skin, muscle, and bone with primitive metal tools. "She is dissecting a living creature," Medical Officer Thexrin whispered in horror. "The being is still alive," confirmed Science Officer Vextal. "Its vital signs show it is aware of the damage being done." "No," Captain Zethkar said, studying the readings more carefully. "Look at the brain patterns. The creature has been rendered unconscious somehow." Patricia spread the ribs apart and exposed the damaged heart. The organ was barely beating. She began to repair the blocked arteries. With her hands, sewing new blood vessels in place of the damaged ones. "This is impossible," Thexrin muttered. "She is operating on the central life support organ while it continues to function." "Their medical knowledge must be far more advanced than we thought," suggested Navigator Clickstar. "No," Vextal replied, analyzing the data. "Their technology is primitive, but they have learned to repair their own bodies using violence." For 6 hours, Patricia worked inside the patient's chest. She replaced damaged tissue and repaired broken blood vessels. Slowly, the heart began to beat stronger. The patient's vital signs improved. When she was finished, Patricia sewed the chest back together. The patient would live. What the aliens had witnessed as systematic destruction was actually healing. "They cut themselves open to fix problems inside," Captain Zethkar said slowly. "They use controlled violence as medicine." "What kind of species develops such methods?" Clickstar wondered. The probe shifted its attention to Las Vegas, where mixed martial arts fighter Tony Garcia prepared for his next fight. Tony had been training for months, learning new ways to hurt other humans with his bare hands. In the gym, Tony practiced on a heavy bag that weighed 200 pounds. He hit it so hard that the entire bag swayed on its chain. Each punch would have broken bones in most galactic species. "Hit harder," his trainer called out. "Your opponent won't go easy on you." Tony increased the power of his strikes. His knuckles were covered in scars from years of fighting. His face showed the marks of countless battles. Yet he smiled as he trained. The alien sensors recorded the impact force of each blow. Tony was deliberately conditioning his body to withstand and deliver violence that would kill most known life forms. He is training to cause maximum damage to others of his own species, observed Vextall. And they do this for entertainment? Asked the captain. The answer came that night when Tony stepped into the octagon. Thousands of humans cheered as he faced his opponent, Jake Sullivan. Both men were trained killers who had volunteered to fight each other. The bell rang, and both fighters charged forward. Tony threw a punch that would have shattered most alien skulls. Jake blocked it and responded with a kick that sent Tony stumbling backward. The crowd roared with approval as the two humans exchanged blows that would hospitalize most galactic citizens. Blood appeared on both faces. Neither man gave up. They seemed to feed off the violence. Jake grabbed Tony and threw him to the ground. He wrapped his arm around Tony's neck, cutting off his air supply. Tony's face turned red as he struggled to breathe. "He is trying to kill him," Thexrin gasped. "The crowd is enjoying it," Clixitar added in horror. Tony managed to break free and got back to his feet. The fight continued for another 10 minutes. Both men absorbed punishment that would kill most species, yet they continued fighting until the final bell. When the fight ended, both men embraced like brothers. The crowd cheered as they raised their arms in victory. What the aliens had witnessed as attempted murder was actually sport. "They fight to the edge of death for pleasure," Captain Zethkar said grimly, "and others pay to watch," Vextall added. The probe detected similar activities across the planet. In Thailand, kickboxers used their shins to break wooden boards. In Brazil, fighters rolled on the ground, trying to choke each other unconscious. In Russia, men fought with no rules at all. At a boxing gym in Philadelphia, trainer Mickey O'Brien worked with young fighters who dreamed of professional careers. These humans spent hours every day learning to hurt each other more efficiently. "Keep your guard up," Mickey shouted at a teenage fighter. "He's gonna try to take your head off." The boy nodded and continued sparring with his partner. Both teenagers hit each other repeatedly in the face and body. They treated this violence as normal training. The alien medical scanners detected brain trauma that would cause permanent damage to most species, yet these young humans continued fighting as if the injuries meant nothing. "Their young ones voluntarily submit to brain damage," Thexrin reported. "They appear to consider it character building," Vextall observed. In a children's playground in suburban Denver, teacher Mary Campbell supervised recess for 32nd grade students. The children played on equipment that would challenge adult members of most galactic species. 8-year-old Tommy Wilson climbed to the top of a metal structure that was 12 feet high. He hung from monkey bars that were spaced too far apart for his small arms. Below him, concrete waited to break his bones if he fell. Tommy's hand slipped, and he fell hard to the ground. The impact would have seriously injured most young aliens. Tommy cried for a moment, then stood up and brushed dirt off his clothes. "I'm okay," he announced and ran back to play. Mary checked him for injuries, but found only a small scrape on his knee. She put a bandage on the wound, and Tommy forgot about it immediately. Their younglings survive impacts that would kill adult members of most species, Thexrin noted. "How do they develop such resilience?" wondered the captain. The answer became clear as the probe observed human child-rearing practices. Parents deliberately exposed their children to danger to make them stronger. They called it building character. At a summer camp in Maine, counselor Steve Adams taught 10-year-old children to climb rock faces without safety equipment. The children scaled cliffs that were 30 feet high, trusting only their small hands and feet to keep them from falling. "Don't look down," Steve called to a nervous girl. "Trust your hands. You're stronger than you think." The girl continued, climbing until she reached the top. She smiled with pride as she looked down at the ground far below. What should have terrified her made her feel accomplished. They deliberately placed their young in life-threatening situations, Clickstar observed, to prepare them for adult life on this planet, the captain realized. In a hospital emergency room in Chicago, Dr. Mark Johnson treated patients who arrived with injuries that would require advanced medical technology on most worlds. Yet he repaired them using primitive tools and techniques. A motorcycle accident victim came in with multiple broken bones and internal bleeding. On most civilized worlds, such injuries would be fatal. Dr. Johnson simply got to work. He cut the patient open and repaired the internal damage with his hands. He set broken bones using metal rods and screws. He transfused blood from other humans to replace what the patient had lost. Another human gave their blood to save this one, Thexrin noted. They share their life essence to help injured members of their species, Vextal confirmed. Yet they also fight each other for entertainment, the captain pointed out. A contradictory species, Clickstar agreed. The probe observed more contradictions. Humans who spent their lives saving others also participated in activities designed to cause harm. Doctors who healed during the day watched boxing matches at night. In a military training facility in North Carolina, Drill Sergeant Lisa Turner put new recruits through exercises designed to break their bodies and minds. The young soldiers crawled through mud under barbed wire. They carried heavy packs for miles in the heat. "You think this is hard?" Lisa shouted. "Wait until someone is shooting at you." The recruits pushed their bodies beyond normal limits. They trained until they collapsed from exhaustion, then got up and trained more. They prepared for warfare by simulating the conditions of battle. The alien sensors detected stress levels that would cause system failure in most galactic military forces. Yet these humans seem to thrive under pressure that would break most species. They prepare for combat by inflicting suffering on themselves, observed Vextal. Their military training would be classified as torture on most worlds, added Thexrin. Yet, it produces effective warriors, the captain noted grimly. At a children's hospital in Los Angeles, pediatric surgeon Dr. Sarah Martinez performed an operation on a 3-year-old child. The child had been the alien probe turned its sensors toward Earth's natural disasters and extreme weather systems. What it discovered there would forever change how the galaxy viewed planetary habitability. The humans did not just survive on their dangerous world. They rebuilt after every catastrophe and came back stronger. At the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory, Dr. Ben Torres monitored the active lava flows from Kilauea Volcano. He stood on hardened lava rock, just hundreds of feet from molten rock that reached temperatures of over 2,000 degrees. The air shimmered with heat that would kill most life forms instantly. Ben wore only basic protective gear as he collected samples of volcanic gas and measured lava temperatures. He had been studying volcanoes for 15 years, working closer to these planetary destruction machines than most species would dare to approach with their best military equipment. "The lava flow is moving at about 10 feet per hour, he reported, into his radio. Temperature holding steady at 2,100 degrees. Behind him, the volcano spewed fountains of molten rock into the air. The ground trembled under his feet as the planet literally rebuilt itself through violence. Yet Ben treated this apocalyptic scene as his workplace. The alien sensors registered energy outputs equivalent to weapons of mass destruction. The heat levels would vaporize most galactic materials. The toxic gases would kill most known biology in seconds. Yet this human worked calmly in conditions that defied survival. He is functioning in an environment equivalent to our industrial foundries, reported engineer Fluxcore, using primitive equipment that should not work under those conditions, added Science Officer Vextel. And he appears to find it scientifically interesting, Captain Zethkar observed with growing unease. In Oklahoma, storm chaser Kelly White drove her reinforced vehicle directly toward a massive tornado. The swirling column of wind reached speeds of over 200 miles per hour. It could tear apart buildings and throw vehicles like toys. Kelly had been chasing storms for 10 years. She loved the raw power of Earth's weather systems. Her equipment measured wind speeds and atmospheric pressure as she drove as close as possible to the tornado's path. "This is a beautiful F4, she said into her camera. "Look at that rotation." The tornado passed within a quarter mile of her position. The wind rocked her vehicle violently. Debris flew through the air like bullets. Any sane species would have fled the area immediately. Kelly followed the tornado for 20 miles, collecting data and taking photographs. She treated the planet's most destructive weather as entertainment and scientific opportunity. The alien probe's meteorological sensors classified the tornado as a planetary defense mechanism. Wind speeds that would destroy most spacecraft. Debris traveling fast enough to penetrate military armor. Yet humans deliberately sought out these atmospheric weapons. "She is pursuing a weather system that our ships would avoid," noted Navigator. "Clickstar." "For recreational purposes," Vextal added in disbelief. "These creatures find planetary destruction entertaining," the captain concluded grimly. The probe detected similar behavior across the planet. In Florida, humans rebuilt their cities after hurricanes destroyed them. In California, they constructed buildings on earthquake fault lines. In Bangladesh, they lived in areas that flooded regularly. After Hurricane Maria destroyed much of Puerto Rico, the humans did not abandon the island. Instead, engineer Carlos Mendez led rebuilding efforts that made the infrastructure stronger than before. He worked in heat and humidity that would exhaust most galactic species. "We build back better," Carlos explained to his crew. "Every storm teaches us how to survive the next one." The work crews labored in conditions that most species would classify as emergency survival protocols. Temperatures over 100 degrees, humidity levels that would drown most galactic respiratory systems. Yet they treated it as normal construction work. "They learn from planetary attacks," observed Fluxcore. "Each disaster makes them more resilient," Vextal noted. "As if they are at war with their own planet," the captain realized. In the mountains of Colorado, search and rescue specialist Chris Lee prepared to climb into a blizzard to find missing hikers. The temperature was 20 degrees below zero. The wind reached 60 miles per hour. Visibility was near zero. Chris had rescued people from mountain disasters for 12 years. He knew that the conditions were deadly, but someone needed help. He put on his gear and headed into the storm. "Base camp, this is Rescue 1. Heading up the north face. Weather is brutal, but I can handle it." Chris climbed through snow that was waist-deep. The wind tried to knock him off the mountain. Ice formed on his equipment. Most species would have died from exposure in minutes. He found the missing hikers 8 hours later. They were hypothermic and barely conscious, but alive. Chris gave them his extra clothing and led them back to safety through the killing storm. The alien medical scanners detected conditions that would cause immediate system failure in most galactic rescue equipment. Yet Chris had functioned normally for hours in what they classified as a lethal environment. He risked his life to save others of his species, Thexrin reported. in conditions that would kill most trained military personnel, Clickstar added. They show remarkable loyalty to their own kind, the captain observed. In the Sahara Desert, survival expert Maria Santos taught military personnel from 12 different nations how to survive in extreme heat. The daytime temperature reached 130 degrees. The ground temperature exceeded 160 degrees. Maria had grown up in this desert. Her family had lived here for generations, learning to find water where none seemed. To exist and to survive in heat that would cook most galactic species. Your body already knows how to handle this, she told her students. Desert peoples have survived here for thousands of years. You just need to listen to what your biology is telling you. The soldiers learned to ration water, find shade, and travel during the cooler hours. They adapted to conditions that most species would require environmental suits to survive. The alien thermal sensors recorded human physiology that continued to function in temperatures that would cause immediate organ failure in most known biology. These creatures possessed cooling systems that surpassed most galactic technology. They have evolved internal climate control, Thexrin noted. Superior to our environmental systems, Flux Core admitted reluctantly. These beings are biological marvels, the captain said quietly. The probe observed humans dealing with every type of natural disaster their planet could produce. In Japan, they built cities that could withstand earthquakes that would level most galactic structures. In Iceland, they used volcanic heat to power their civilization. After a massive earthquake struck Nepal, mountain guide Tenzing Norbu helped coordinate rescue efforts in terrain that would challenge the most advanced galactic rescue teams. He worked at altitudes where most species would lose consciousness, in conditions that would kill most known life forms. The mountain took many lives, Tenzing said sadly. But it also brought out the best in people. Humans from around the world came to help. Rescue teams from dozens of nations worked together to save survivors trapped in the rubble. They operated in thin air and freezing temperatures, using primitive equipment to accomplish what most species would need advanced technology to attempt. They cooperate during planetary emergencies, Vextall observed. Despite their tendency toward violence, they unite to help each other survive, the captain noted. In Australia, bushfire fighter Jack Murphy led teams battling wildfires that covered thousands of square miles. The fires reached temperatures that would melt most galactic materials. The smoke would suffocate most known respiratory systems. Jack wore basic protective gear and carried primitive tools as he fought fires that registered as weapons-grade energy sources on alien sensors. He had been fighting bushfires for 20 years, treating planetary incineration as a job. "The fire is jumping the road," he reported over his radio. "We need to fall back and establish a new line." His team retreated through smoke so thick they could barely see. The heat was intense enough to ignite clothing from a distance, yet they regrouped and continued fighting the fire until it was contained. They battle environmental destruction using manual labor, Flux Core reported, and they often win, Vextall added with amazement. The probe's survey revealed a pattern that disturbed the alien crew. Humans did not simply endure their planet's attempts to kill them, they actively fought back. They had declared war on their own environment and were winning. In Louisiana, oil rig worker Danny Tran worked on platforms in the Gulf of Mexico during hurricane season. The massive storms brought waves over 30 feet high and winds that could destroy spacecraft. Yet humans continued to extract resources from the ocean floor. "Secure those pipes," Danny shouted over the howling wind. "This storm isn't going to last forever," He worked on equipment that most species would classify as critical infrastructure, maintaining it in conditions that would shut down most galactic industrial operations. The oil platform rode out the hurricane like a ship in a cosmic storm. They continue industrial operations during planetary attacks, observed Flux Core. Their determination is admirable and terrifying, the captain admitted. In the frozen Antarctic,